Will Albertsons stores soon be Fred Meyer owned? Well, that's the plan, or at least their plan. It's a major merger that is awaiting a final blessing or a block from the federal government. Boise-based Albertsons is ready to roll, it appears. And usually with a merger, companies pay out special dividends to shareholders. And with this one, that could mean up to $4 billion coming back to investors. Just one problem. The regulators remind us the deal between Kroger and Albertsons isn't done yet, and they fear the special dividend will have major impacts in a negative way. The old don't count the chickens before they're hatched kind of thing. Joe Paris explains what that means for Albertsons shareholders.
A group of state attorneys general is asking Albertsons to pump the brakes on sending out billions in special dividend payments to their shareholders. Albertsons announced as a part of their proposed merger with Kroger that, quote, as a part of the transaction, the company will pay a special cash dividend of up to $4 billion to its stockholders. The bipartisan group of attorneys general, including Idaho AG Lawrence Wasden, expressed concerns about the ramifications of such a large dividend, while the merger between Albertsons and Kroger is still pending. In a letter to Albertsons, authored by the District of Columbia Attorney General Karl Racine and signed by AGs from 5 other states, including Idaho, there are concerns about the end result of a merger between the grocery chains. The letter says that the AGs, quote, are dedicated to ensuring that the proposed merger of Kroger and Albertsons, announced on October 14th, does not result in higher prices for consumers, suppressed wages for workers, or other anti-competitive effects. In this period of historically above-average inflation, the letter says, purchasers of groceries have been particularly hard hit. University of Idaho Associate Clinical Professor of Economics, Dr. Stephen Peterson, explains what regulators are possibly looking at in terms of reviewing the merger.
Will it restrict competition, or will it enhance, what is its effect going to be on the consumer? Will it restrict competition? Will it raise prices, or through the supply chain effects and through economies of scale and scope, will it have the opposite effect of ultimately lowering prices?
Peterson says mergers like this can have very different outcomes.
Economic theory tells us that if you reduce the number of sellers, that puts upward pressure on prices, makes it more expensive for consumers. At the same time, mergers like this can create economies of scale, economies of scope, and supply chain efficiencies, which lower overall prices.
The letter to Albertsons highlights that thought, reiterating, quote, federal and state competition laws forbid parties from entering agreements that substantially lessen competition or unreasonably restrain trade. So why is a dividend to investors an issue, according to the attorneys general? Well, as highlighted in the letter, the $4 billion special dividend would account for, quote, approximately 1/3 of Albertsons' market capitalization of approximately $11.19 billion. That amount, according to the letter, would essentially handicap Albertsons from competing against Kroger in the marketplace, something that both companies are supposed to continue doing as the merger is reviewed. And the crux of the letter says, quote, an agreement with Kroger that deprives Albertsons of the cash it needs to operate competitively is economically no different than other pre-merger agreements or actions that have limited the output or other business operations of a merging party, leading the federal agencies to act. Even if Albertsons plans to adhere to the legal requirement in the merger's agreement commitment that it continues to compete with Kroger during the pendency of the merger's review, paying a dividend of that size will hamper its ability to meaningfully compete with Kroger, end quote. Now, Albertsons responded to my request for comment with a statement of their own. It says in part, quote, the special dividend allows us to return cash to all of Albertsons company shareholders. Following the dividend payment, Albertsons companies will continue to be well capitalized with a low debt profile and strong free cash flow. Given our financial strength and positive business outlook, we are confident that we will maintain our strong financial position as we work towards the closing of the merger, end quote. The letter to Albertsons wraps up saying that the approval of the merger is far from assured and, quote, the states must undertake the review and assure themselves that competition in all relevant antitrust markets at issue is preserved. The attorneys general are asking Albertsons to cancel the issuance of that special dividend and postpone any payments of any kind of dividend until the regulatory review is all over. And that they're asking Albertsons to really respond by 5 o'clock tomorrow to tell them if they're going to give the dividend or not. Right now, Brian, it's actually just a request. And Albertsons, we haven't heard from them on if they're going to send this payment or not. But you get the impression that if Albertsons on their own volition decides to not stop the payment, at that point, we could see some legal maneuvers. Now, to be very clear, this is just a letter right now from a group of attorneys general. If they don't get their way, it wouldn't be out of the question to see this in court.
So basically, Albertsons is putting the cart before the horse, saying, we're going to pay out this money, so we expect you to guarantee or to approve this sale. And if not, that means we're out a lot of money, and then we might have to declare bankruptcy. Is that how this works?
Yeah, and stuff like this, there's some very specific maneuvering. Of course, we'd have to hear from Albertsons to hear exactly what their plan is. But that is one characterization of what's going on here. Put yourself in a situation where they can't say no.
They can't say no. All right, we'll see what happens. They might say no. All right, thank you, Joe.